I never thought I'd be the kind of person to plot revenge, but my wealthy Aunt Evelyn pushed me too far. I'm Claire, 32, a graphic designer living in Seattle with my fiancé, Matt. We're not rolling in money, but we have a good life. We both work hard, we have a cozy apartment, and we were excited to start our future together until my aunt decided to make my wedding a battleground. Evelyn is my dad's older sister, a 65-year-old widow who lives like she stepped out of a country club brochure. She has a sprawling estate, a vintage Rolls-Royce she barely drives, and a membership at the Cascadia Elite Club, the kind of place where people sip champagne and pretend to be above the rest of the world. She's always been like this, looking down on everyone who doesn't have a fortune to their name. Growing up, I ignored it. She was family. But when she ignored my wedding invites, not one, but 3, I realized she wasn't just being forgetful. She was making a point. So I decided to make one too. Matt proposed last spring under the cherry blossoms at the University of Washington. It was beautiful, completely unexpected. People around us clapped, and I was so caught up in the moment that I didn't even realize how much attention we were getting until strangers started congratulating us. My parents were thrilled. They hosted a small dinner to celebrate, and for the first time in a while, everything felt perfect. Evelyn, though, nowhere to be seen. She texted my mom a vague busy with plans excuse, which meant she was at some club event or spa weekend. No surprise there. Still, I sent her a wedding invitation in June. I designed it myself, elegant but simple, something I thought she'd appreciate. I even included a personal note, making it clear that I genuinely wanted her to come. No response. No call. No text. Maybe she didn't get it? So in August, I called her, left a voicemail about the wedding date, October 15th, and asked her to let me know if she could make it. Silence. At this point, I should have known better, but I tried one last time. 2 weeks before the wedding, I sent a text. Short and direct, hey, just wanted to check if you'll be able to come. It would really mean a lot. She finally replied, oh, I'll see if I'm free. That was it. No apology, no acknowledgement of the months of ignoring me. And then, nothing. She ghosted me. I tried to brush it off. Maybe she was just busy, or maybe she had something going on she didn't want to talk about. But then my cousin Lisa let something slip. She mentioned, casually, that Evelyn had laughed about my little backyard wedding and never had any intention of coming. That hit harder than I expected. I had spent months planning the perfect day, pouring my time, effort, and savings into it. And she thought it was beneath her? That night, I sat with Matt, trying not to cry as I told him what Lisa had said. He held my hand and told me not to let her get to me, but it stung. October 15th came, and she didn't show. My parents made excuses for her, saying maybe something came up, but I knew the truth. She never cared. A week later, I was scrolling through Instagram when I saw it. A photo of Evelyn, sipping champagne on a balcony at the Cascadia Elite Club. The caption? Living my best life. She had blown off my wedding for a random club event. That was when something shifted. I wasn't just hurt anymore. I was angry. Matt told me to let it go, that she wasn't worth it. But Evelyn had spent years looking down on people, acting like she was untouchable. This wasn't just about the wedding. It was about all the times she treated people like they were nothing. All the times she used her money and status to act like she was better than everyone else. She had made it clear that she didn't respect me. Fine. But I knew one thing she did respect. Her place at that club. It wasn't just a hobby for her. It was her whole identity. The exclusive events, the networking, the image, it was everything to her. And if she lost that, she'd be devastated. So I started doing my research. Cascadia Elite Club was strict. Invite only, $50,000 annual fees, and a long list of rules. Rules that, if broken, could get a member banned. I didn't have a plan yet, but I knew one thing. I was going to hit her where it hurt the most. I spent hours online digging into the club's rules and regulations. Cascadia Elite Club had a strict code of conduct, and one thing stood out: conduct unbecoming of a member was taken very seriously. That included financial fraud, tax evasion, and anything that could bring embarrassment to the club. They prided themselves on exclusivity, and any hint of scandal could be enough to get someone removed. That was exactly what I needed. My dad unknowingly handed me my first clue. We were on a call, casually chatting when he brought up how Evelyn had always bragged about how she and her late husband handled their estate taxes. He laughed, calling it one of her favorite stories. That caught my attention. If she had fudged her late husband's estate taxes and openly talked about it, there had to be more. But I needed proof. I created a burner email under the name Sarah Michaels, a fake journalist. I drafted a message to the club's ethics committee, keeping it vague. I hinted at credible tips about a member's financial misconduct, saying I was gathering information on tax evasion among Seattle's elite. No details. Just enough to make them curious. Then I started tracking Evelyn's movements. Every Thursday at 6 p.m., like clockwork, she left her house for dinner at the club. She was predictable. That worked in my favor. One evening, I drove by the club and snapped time-stamped photos of her Rolls-Royce parked outside. If I needed to build a timeline later, I'd have proof she was actively involved in club events. That Sunday, my parents hosted a family brunch, and Evelyn was there. I played along, pretending nothing was wrong, asking about her club life like I was genuinely interested. She loved talking about it. At one point, she smirked and mentioned how she had handled a club audit years ago. She didn't give details, but the way she said it made it sound shady. That was my first solid lead. I reached out to Lisa. I kept it casual, asking if Evelyn had any interesting club stories. She didn't think much of it and mentioned how Evelyn once made a shady donation to secure her spot in the club. That was something worth looking into. I searched public records for donations tied to the club. It took some time, but then I found it, a $100,000 gift to a club-affiliated charity in 2010. The timing lined up with when she became a member. A perfectly timed donation that looked suspicious. Instead of going directly to the club with this information, I took another approach. Sarah Michaels sent an anonymous tip to a local journalist, hinting at a Cascadia Elite Club member with a questionable financial past. I didn't name names, but I made sure it was intriguing enough to make someone want to dig deeper. Matt caught me working on my laptop late that night. He saw the drafted emails and asked what I was doing. I told him I was being careful, that I wasn't going to get caught. He didn't look convinced, but he let it go, for now. To get more insight, I joined a local forum where club staff vented anonymously. After scrolling through posts, I found one mentioning a stuffy old lady who had been causing drama at the club lately. There was a good chance that was Evelyn. I took it one step further. I created a blurry, slightly distorted tax form with Evelyn's name, making it look like a leaked document. I didn't plan on using it immediately, but having it ready gave me options. That night, as I shut my laptop, I knew I was onto something big. Lisa mentioned in passing that Evelyn was hosting a wine tasting event at the Cascadia Elite Club next Friday. That was perfect. If things went according to plan, she'd be facing questions from the club right around the same time she was trying to play hostess. I went back to the forum where club staff vented anonymously. One user had complained about entitled members ruining their shift. I sent them a direct message, hinting that I had dirt on one of those members and needed their help. They were curious but cautious. I responded as Sarah, keeping things vague, saying I had information that could expose a major club scandal, but needed someone on the inside. They took the bait. They responded, revealing that Evelyn had once screamed at a waiter for spilling a drink on her. Apparently, she made such a scene that the manager had to step in. Public tantrums were frowned upon at the club, bad behavior from members could hurt their image, and they didn't tolerate repeat offenders. I searched for more dirt, scouring YouTube for old club event footage. After a while, I found something useful, an old video from 2019. In it, Evelyn was clearly tipsy, waving a wine glass while arguing with another club member. It wasn't a full meltdown, but it showed her in an unflattering light. That was enough. I sent an email as Sarah to the club's ethics committee, attaching the video link and hinting that it was part of a pattern of misconduct. I also teased that there was a financial scandal brewing, mentioning that some records might be worth looking into. That Sunday, my parents hosted a barbecue and Evelyn showed up. I played it cool, making casual conversation. She had no idea what was happening behind the scenes. At one point, she started gloating about her upcoming event at the club. After dinner, she stepped outside to take a phone call. She didn't lower her voice. She sounded annoyed, mentioning something about a nosy email the club had sent her. That was my doing. Later that night, Matt found a printed email from Sarah that I'd left out by accident. He confronted me, recognizing that I was behind it. He warned me that if this went too far, he'd tell my parents. I convinced him it was just a prank that had spiraled, something I was handling. He wasn't happy, but he let it go, for now. On the forum, my staff contact posted anonymously, mentioning a big member scandal brewing. The gossip was spreading. I sent the blurry tax form to the staffer, asking them to accidentally leave it somewhere management might see. Lisa texted me later, asking if I'd heard about the club drama. Evelyn had mentioned rumors spreading, but she didn't know where they were coming from. Then, Sarah got a reply from the ethics committee. They wanted a meeting with my source. That meant I had to adjust my plan. Instead of engaging directly, I drafted a letter from a former accountant who had worked for Evelyn. I made sure it sounded formal but vague, just enough to raise suspicion. That night, I poured myself a glass of wine, picturing the moment Evelyn would get the club's letter. Lisa sent me a photo of an envelope sitting on Evelyn's kitchen counter, marked urgent from the Cascadia Elite Club. The moment I saw it, I knew. The club had taken the bait. A few hours later, Lisa updated me again. Evelyn was on the phone, furious. She was ranting about false accusations and how jealous nobodies were trying to drag her down. She sounded panicked, which meant the club's letter wasn't just a warning. They were taking the rumors seriously. On the forum, my staff contact confirmed that the fake tax form I'd planted had made its way around club staff. The gossip was spreading fast. People were whispering. This was exactly what I needed. I created a new burner email under the name James Carter, a fictional ex-accountant who had supposedly worked for Evelyn. I drafted a detailed confession, claiming that he had helped her work around estate taxes years ago but had left her employment out of guilt. I made sure the email sounded convincing, just vague enough to avoid needing actual proof, but detailed enough to raise suspicion. Then I sent it directly to the club's ethics committee. That night, I was in the other room, using a burner phone to set up a voicemail drop as James Carter. I was about to leave a message when Matt walked in. He had heard enough. He demanded I stop. He was angry, more than he had been before. He told me this was going too far, and that if I didn't come clean to Evelyn, he was leaving. I didn't answer. I locked my burner phone in my desk drawer, stalling him. He walked out of the room, slamming the door behind him. The next morning, my dad called. Evelyn had hired a private investigator to clear her name. That was a problem. A real investigator poking around could make things messy. I had to stay ahead. Later that day, a local news blog published a blind item about an elite club member facing scrutiny for questionable financial practices. The article didn't name her, but I knew it was about Evelyn. The club's reputation was built on exclusivity, and even a whisper of scandal could make them distance themselves from her. That evening, Lisa attended Evelyn's wine tasting event at the club. She texted me that Evelyn was on edge the entire night. At one point, a guest made a casual comment about the rumors, and Evelyn snapped at them, raising her voice in front of multiple witnesses. That kind of public outburst was exactly the kind of behavior the club hated. Lisa sent me blurry photos from the event, showing Evelyn looking visibly frustrated mid-conversation. I forwarded them to my staff contact, who promised to pass them on to management as proof of instability. Later that night, I used a voice changer app to leave a cryptic voicemail at the club. As James Carter, I hinted that there was more evidence to uncover if they dug deeper into Evelyn's financial past. At dinner the next day, Evelyn cornered me. Her eyes were sharp. She asked if I had heard anything about what was going on at the club. I played dumb. She stared at me for a second, then changed the subject. But I could tell she was starting to suspect something. That evening, Sarah Michaels received a response from the ethics committee. The club had launched a formal review into an unnamed member. Game on. I barely slept that night, tweaking my next move, scrolling through emails, and reading up on club expulsion cases. My adrenaline was running too high. At some point, Matt walked in. He stood there for a moment, watching me at my laptop. I whispered to him that I wasn't stopping. He sighed, shaking his head, and walked away. A gray sedan was parked outside my apartment. The driver wasn't doing anything suspicious, just sitting there, flipping through his phone, but something about it felt off. I ducked back inside, heart pounding. Evelyn's private investigator was watching. I needed an alibi. I told Matt that if anyone, especially family, asked, he should say I'd been sick all week and barely left the apartment. That way, if Evelyn started digging, she'd have nothing to pin on me. Matt barely acknowledged me. He was past arguing. That afternoon, my staff contact messaged me. Evelyn had stormed into the club, demanding a private meeting with the board. She was panicking. She wasn't just brushing off the rumors anymore, she was fighting to save her spot. I had to move faster. I drafted a physical letter from James Carter and mailed it directly to the club, typed on fake letterhead from a non-existent accounting firm. In it, I described Evelyn's alleged charity scam, how her $100,000 donation had been nothing more than a backdoor bribe for club membership. It wasn't provable, but it didn't have to be. It just had to sound believable enough to make the club nervous. Lisa called, saying Evelyn had a new theory. She thought one of her club rivals was behind it. Perfect. She was looking in the wrong direction. I checked Evelyn's Instagram. She had posted a cryptic rant about loyalty and how certain people couldn't be trusted. I screenshotted it, filing it away for later. Then Matt hit me with an ultimatum. If I didn't stop, he was leaving. He wasn't bluffing this time. I promised him I'd wrap it up soon. I was lying. A local news blog dropped a follow-up article, and this time they named Evelyn outright. They cited anonymous sources linking her to tax fraud and charity mismanagement. The moment I saw it, I knew the story was getting too big for her to control. Evelyn called my dad, begging him to vouch for her to the club board. I listened in while my dad debated what to do. I urged him to stay neutral, to tell her it was a club matter, not a family one. Then I took another step. I hired a voice actor online to play the role of a former business associate. They called the club, claiming Evelyn had pressured them into a shady investment deal years ago that had cost them thousands. The response was measured. Sarah received an acknowledgement from the club stating they would conduct an internal review. Evelyn, being a long-time and influential member, would have a chance to defend herself before any decisions were made. The gray sedan guy knocked on my door that evening. He handed me a card from a private investigation firm, his expression unreadable. "Your name keeps coming up," he said, watching my reaction. I kept my face neutral, denying involvement, but I knew I had to be more careful. Evelyn wasn't clueless, she was looking for answers. I called Lisa, asking her to invite Evelyn over for drinks. It would keep her busy and distracted while I prepared my next move. On the forum, my staff contact posted a new update. Club members were already debating Evelyn's expulsion. Some were arguing for immediate removal. I stayed up late, drafting a final James email, a last push to force the club's hand. I promised them a bombshell if they didn't act soon. Lisa sent a message early in the morning. Evelyn had trashed her study. Papers, books, and folders were everywhere. She was convinced someone had stolen important files. Paranoia was setting in. Later that afternoon, I went to the grocery store. As I walked through the parking lot, I noticed something in my peripheral vision, the gray sedan. Evelyn's private investigator was tailing me. I kept my pace steady, turning into an aisle between parked cars. The moment I was out of his sight, I darted through a side exit, looping around the back of the store and cutting through an alley. When I finally stopped, my hands were shaking, my chest heaving. But I'd lost him. That night, James Carter sent one last email to the club's ethics committee. I found an old financial discrepancy in a club audit report from years ago. It wasn't direct proof of fraud, but it raised enough suspicion to warrant further investigation. If Evelyn had cut corners, the board would find it themselves soon enough. Evelyn showed up at the club with a lawyer the next day. She was furious. My staff contact sent me real-time updates. She was demanding to know who was spreading blatant lies about her. Club members whispered as she yelled in the lobby, waving papers around. That was the exact kind of behavior Cascadia elite hated. At home, Matt was barely acknowledging me. He'd moved into the guest room, refusing to speak to me beyond necessary exchanges. He muttered something about how he couldn't watch me self-destruct. I ignored him. There were bigger things to focus on. Dad called later, his tone sharp. He wanted answers. Evelyn had reached out, hinting that someone in the family was working against her. He asked if I knew anything about what was happening. I feigned shock, acting as if it was the first time I had heard about it. Lisa's tone had changed too. She asked if I really believed Evelyn deserved this. I dodged the question, casually saying, "Karma's funny sometimes." She didn't push, but something in her voice made it clear she was starting to suspect. A bigger news outlet picked up the story. The headline read, "Seattle's socialite scandal, tax evasion, bribery, and the fall of a high society figure." My leaks had taken on a life of their own. I decided to plant one last rumor. I had met a bartender from the club at a public event once. That night, I casually tipped him off, mentioning that I'd heard Evelyn once bullied a former employee into silence. I left it at that, knowing it would spread through the club's inner circles like wildfire. Evelyn tried to control the damage. She sent a long-winded email to family, playing the victim, begging for support. She claimed she was being targeted and sabotaged. I didn't reply. My staff contact told me the committee was compiling evidence for the hearing. My forgeries were in the mix. They were being treated as legitimate. At midnight, I drove past Evelyn's house. From the street, I could see her in the backyard. A fire pit was blazing. She was burning papers. I stayed there for a long moment, watching as she tossed in folder after folder. If she was destroying documents, it meant she was truly scared. I sat in my car afterward, hands gripping the steering wheel. For the first time in weeks, tears came. For a moment, I wondered if I had gone too far. But then I thought about her Instagram post from my wedding day. The champagne glass. The smug caption. Living my best life. I wiped my face. When I got home, I checked the club forum. A member had posted anonymously. Evelyn's expulsion vote was imminent. I stared at the screen, pulse pounding. Then I shut my laptop, crawled into bed, and whispered into the dark. Almost there. The message came early in the morning. My staff contact had one line. It's happening. Friday. Evelyn's expulsion hearing was set. 3 days away. Lisa called later. Evelyn had gone into overdrive. She was calling old club friends, begging them to testify on her behalf. Some agreed, but most didn't want to get involved. Desperation was setting in. She was losing control. I needed one last push. Sarah Michaels emailed the club committee a doctored photo, Evelyn handing an envelope to a shadowy figure in a suit. It was pure Photoshop, but convincing enough to raise more doubts. The timing of the image suggested a payoff for silence, tying perfectly into the charity fraud narrative. That afternoon, the private investigator reappeared. He was parked near my office, watching. I took a different route home, slipping onto a crowded bus downtown. I stayed pressed between commuters, weaving through streets until he lost me. That evening, Matt packed a bag. "This isn't you," he said quietly, standing by the door. "You're better than this." I wanted to argue, but I didn't. He walked out and I let him go. Evelyn called in favors, rallying a few close allies to push back against the accusations. A crisis PR firm had been hired, and an official statement was released denying all claims. But the damage was done. Whispers still circulated, and some former friends were now keeping their distance. Then the news cameras showed up. A local TV station ran a segment titled Cascadia's Crumbling Elite. They showed Evelyn holding her sign, red-faced, ranting about betrayal. My plan was snowballing. That night, Lisa knocked on my door. She begged me to talk Evelyn down. I refused. I told her I couldn't control Evelyn's choices. The next morning, James Carter sent one final recorded voicemail to the club's board. A muffled voice claimed Evelyn had once bragged about dodging estate taxes at a private party. Dad hosted a tense family dinner later that night. Evelyn sobbed about betrayal. She kept staring at me. I sipped my wine. The forum lit up. My staff contact posted an update. The committee was 99% decided against Evelyn. She cornered me after dinner. Her nails dug into my wrist. "I'll find the snake," she whispered. I smiled and walked away. That night, I tailed her home. She stumbled inside, clearly drunk. Alone in my car, I wavered. I opened my laptop, almost emailing the club to retract everything. Then I remembered. Her Instagram post. The champagne. The smug caption. I deleted the draft. She would fall, and I would be there to watch. The message from my staff contact came in early. Evelyn had arrived at Cascadia Elite Club in a tailored navy suit, heels clicking on the marble floor. Her lawyer trailed behind her, a sharp-dressed man carrying a briefcase that looked far too thin to handle what was coming. She looked polished, but there was something off, a stiffness in her shoulders, a tension in her jaw. She wasn't as composed as she wanted to seem. Outside, reporters had gathered. The local blog had tipped them off, and now camera flashes flickered like wildfire. The humiliation wasn't just happening behind closed doors. It was about to become public record. Lisa sent a quick update from inside. Evelyn had given a speech to the committee, voice trembling. She had painted herself as the tragic victim of a smear campaign, claiming she had been framed by jealous enemies. Some members nodded sympathetically, but others exchanged skeptical glances. She was fighting for her life, but the damage had already been done. Then the committee presented the claims, but Evelyn's lawyer countered, requesting verification. The board hesitated. While the accusations raised serious concerns, they needed more concrete proof before making a decision. The process wasn't as swift as I had hoped. Evelyn's private investigator had submitted his report, trying to shift the blame onto a club rival. The committee barely glanced at it. No hard evidence. Dismissed. She was alone in this fight. Matt texted me in the middle of the hearing. "Please, stop this. Tell her the truth. I'm begging you." I ignored it. The vote began. The committee debated for hours. Some members argued that Evelyn had served the club for years, that this was an unfair witch hunt. But then Evelyn snapped at one of them. A single moment. A single outburst. That was it. At 8 p.m., the announcement came. Evelyn was expelled. Effective immediately. My phone buzzed with the message. It was over. Outside, reporters swarmed as Evelyn stormed out of the club. Her mascara was streaked. Her perfectly composed mask shattered. She screamed about lawsuits, vowing to sue the club, the media, anyone who had defamed her. The cameras caught it all. Later that night, Lisa called. Her voice was tight, accusing. She knew I had something to do with this. She didn't have proof, but she knew. I deflected, brushing it off. Evelyn dug her own grave. Dad texted me soon after. Evelyn disowned the family. She says we're all toxic. I didn't react. I checked the forum. Staff members had posted pictures of Evelyn's reserved parking spot being painted over. A quiet, final erasure. I poured myself a glass of Evelyn's favorite Pinot Noir. I toasted alone. Then Matt left. This time he didn't just move to the guest room. He packed a bag, walked out the door, didn't look back. I didn't argue. Instead, I sat alone, scrolling through Evelyn's old Instagram post from my wedding day. The champagne glass. The smug caption. Living my best life. I wondered if I had paid too much for this. Lisa sent an update. Evelyn was gone. She had fled to her vacation home in Oregon, avoiding the reporters camping outside her estate. The once invincible socialite, reduced to hiding. At Cascadia Elite Club, the fallout continued. My staff contact posted an update. Members were turning on each other. Evelyn's scandal had unleashed chaos. Suddenly, people were digging into other members' finances, questioning donations, whispering about backroom deals. My leaks had started a witch hunt. The news cycle didn't let up. Some outlets speculated on Evelyn's alleged misdeeds, while others dismissed it as a socialite squabble. Her status wasn't completely gone, but the club had distanced itself, and invitations to exclusive events were noticeably fewer. At home, I found a letter under the couch. It was from Matt. He was gone for good. He couldn't live with my secrets, couldn't recognize the person I had become. The words were final, brutal. My phone stayed silent. Dad stopped calling. Mom sent a short text, something about needing healing time. I was the outcast now. Lisa showed up the next day. Her eyes were red-rimmed. She admitted Evelyn had cut her off too. She stood there, exposed, hollow. I pulled her into a hug. Guilt flickered, but only for a second. Evelyn's Instagram was gone. She had deleted everything. Years of boasting, flaunting, bragging, wiped clean. At work, people whispered about the scandal, laughing at the absurdity. No one knew it was me. I kept my head down. The gray sedan disappeared. Evelyn's private investigator was gone. No leads. No case. Nothing left to chase. I walked to the cherry blossom trees where Matt had proposed. The petals were falling, drifting onto the path. I replayed every step of this mess. Later, Dad played me a voicemail. Evelyn's voice was shaky, uncertain. She was asking him to mediate, to fix the family she had disowned. I listened. Expression blank. I felt nothing. At home, I redesigned my apartment. Matt's things gone. New decor. New space. Mine alone. On the club forum, I sent one last message to my staff contact. A simple thank you. Then I deleted my burner accounts. Clean slate. I stared at my wedding invitation, tracing the edges with my fingers. Had I gone too far? The thought lingered, but I shook it off. Evelyn had earned this. Still, the city skyline outside looked a little lonelier than before.